views and opinions expressed on the State of the Nation are those of the host and staff and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of any format in which this broadcast is heard or viewed. Any content provided by our bloggers or authors are of their opinion and are not intended to malign any religion, ethnic group, club, organization, company, individual or anyone or anything. At the State of the Nation we do not condone violence of any nature to any individual, personal property or governmental body. We support the men and women in blue and stand behind our military and all oath takers.
The FBI and the surveillance of American citizens. This information is being shared to inform you of current practices being used by governmental agencies on United States citizens without cause. Included in this video is evidence and open source information on how and why this data is being collected. Lastly, we have included a clip to show you how all of this technology works. The Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, has continued to conduct warrantless surveillance under Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, FISA, and commit widespread violations of the querying standard, such as searching for private information on American citizens, according to a recently declassified report. In November 2020, the 67-page ruling was issued by James Boasberg, the presiding judge of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, but was not authorized for public release until recently by the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, ODNI. Despite highlighting numerous shortcomings and areas of concern, Boasberg authorized the program for another year. Originally created in the early 2000s, the program allowed American tech companies to assist the National Security Agency, NSA, in intercepting communications of foreign targets, which sometimes involved U.S. citizens. In a review of 40 queries that had been conducted in support of predicated criminal investigations relating to healthcare fraud, transnational organized crime, violent gangs, domestic terrorism involving racially motivated violent extremists, as well as investigations relating to public corruption and bribery redacted, Boasberg said that none of these queries was related to national security. Some of the FBI's data searches involved the personal information of people who wanted to participate in an FBI-run Citizens Academy, repairmen who needed to enter the FBI field office, and people who entered the field office to report a crime. The agency also made queries on citizens for crimes completely unrelated to foreign intelligence and without permission from the courts. Back in 2018, the FISA court found that FBI personnel were searching through personal information such as email addresses and phone numbers of American citizens. Judge Boasberg ordered the agency to overhaul FISA procedures to provide additional employee training and better protect the privacy of Americans. For example, employees should pay attention to whether a surveillance target is a government source when filling out warrant application forms, and checklists used to vet confidential sources should be improved. The FBI submitted the updated procedures to the court last year. One FBI official told the Epoch Times that most incidents of non-compliance mentioned in the newly declassified report occurred before the new procedures were implemented. While the court is concerned about the apparent widespread violations of the querying standard, it lacks sufficient information at this time to assess the adequacy of the FBI system changes and training, post-implementation, Boasberg said. Under these unique circumstances, and in the absence of evidence to the contrary, the court is willing to again conclude that the improper queries described above do not undermine its prior determination that, with implementation of the documentation requirement, the FBI's querying and minimization procedures meet statutory and Fourth Amendment requirements. Legislation to protect personal data. To protect the personal data of Americans, Democratic Senator Ron Wyden and Republican Senator Rand Paul recently introduced the Fourth Amendment is Not for Sale Act. The bill aims to block a legal loophole that allows data brokers to sell the personal data of Americans to intelligence and law enforcement agencies without proper legal oversight. Doing business online doesn't amount to giving the government permission to track your every movement or rifle through the most personal details of your life. There's no reason information scavenged by data brokers should be treated differently than the same data held by your phone company or email provider. This bill closes that legal loophole and ensures that the government can't use its credit card to end run the Fourth Amendment, Wyden said in an April 21 statement. Currently, app developers are banned from directly selling personal data to government agencies, but data sold to a data broker can be resold to government entities. By contrast, phone companies and social media websites are subject to stricter data transfer regulations. Several media outlets have reported that data brokers track and collect information on people who visit places of worship and participate in protests. Last year, the Internal Revenue Service, IRS, allegedly bought location data collected from the smartphones of millions of Americans from Virginia-based data broker Ventel Inc. Another broker, Clearview AI, compiled a huge database consisting of billions of photos downloaded from social media websites. The photos were used to drive a facial recognition system that the company sells to government agencies. The Fourth Amendment is Not for Sale Act aims to require a court order for the government to access data from brokers. In addition, U.S. intelligence and law enforcement agencies would be prohibited from accessing data obtained from an American citizen's device or online account. The purchase of American data collected through hacking, deception, contract violation, and other similar methods would be banned, which would make the government's use of the Clearview service illegal. Recommendations to counter undemocratic surveillance. In September last year, the Center for New American Society, CNAS, released a report outlining the steps Washington must take to prevent abuse of surveillance technologies. The organization recommended that federal agencies like the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, DARPA, and the U.S. State Department develop tech solutions to protect the privacy of American citizens. The report also asked the government to enshrine data privacy protections in statute for American use and collaborate with tech companies to further the cause internationally. Furthermore, the U.S. should partner with tech companies to develop a privacy solution, or commercially viable, privacy-preserving digital products, which can act as the free world alternative to the illiberal use of surveillance tech. What is a dirt box or stingray? If you are trying to monitor a huge political protest, look no further than DRIT. Nicknamed dirt boxes, these devices can locate up to 10,000 targets and can process multiple analog and digital wireless devices all at the same time. They're even capable of intercepting and recording digital voice data. The best thing about the devices is the fact that no one may ever know you've used one. Just be careful if your targets do figure out you've used a DRT box, and you haven't gotten a warrant. They may be able to convince a judge to throw out all the evidence you've collected on them after you used the device. The DRT 1301C provides a miniature, yet powerful, surveillance capability against a variety of analog and digital wireless standards. It extends the capabilities of previous DRT systems. It incorporates advanced passive cooling technology, eliminating the need for a noisy fan. DRT Box is a military surveillance technology that has capabilities of both Stingray as well as Dirt Box, allowing the police to track, intercept thousands of cell phone calls and quietly eavesdrop on conversations, emails, and text messages. This cell phone spying program, which potentially affects the privacy of everyone from Orange County's 3 million residents to the 16 million people who visit Disneyland every year, shows the dangers of allowing law enforcement to secretly acquire surveillance technology, said Matt Cagle, Technology and Civil Liberties Policy Attorney for ACLUNC. Besides Dirtbox, the police also purchased multiple Stingray devices, including one that can monitor LTE, long-term evolution, networks. DRT Box is capable of retrieving data from tens of thousands of mobile phones during a single flight in order to target criminals and suspects. However, the data on a vast number of innocent people are also being collected. Generally, DRT Box works by masquerading as a cell phone tower. All the mobile phones, within the range that automatically connect to the strongest and nearest cell tower, respond to the signal and trick victims into connecting to it. DRT Box also collects hardware numbers, registration information and identity data, associated with the phone, uniquely identifying IMEI numbers stored in every mobile device. DRT box surveillance device runs a man-in-the-middle (MITM) attack that could not be detected by the users easily and thus allows police to track and catch criminals like drug traffickers. As it targets all nearby cellular devices, so law enforcement are able to get information from hundreds of devices concurrently. How does DRT box crack carrier-based encryption? Wireless carriers are using various encryption standards to protect the privacy of cell phone data communication, which is built into GSM 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G, and all LTE networks. Since GSM is nearly 30 years old and deprecated over the time because of lack of tower authentication, bad key derivation algorithms, and terrible encryption algorithms, it is easily crackable. However, 3G, 4G, 5G and LTE networks have fixed these vulnerabilities and are using strong encryption standards to keep communication between the handset and the local tower secure. If you are using 3G/4G SIM, then you must be aware that in case of network unavailability, your 3G/4G connections automatically drop down, fail over or fall back to GSM connection. DRT box exploits this fallback feature to implement a rollback attack, jamming 3G/4G connection and thus reactivating all of the GSM attacks to crack encryption easily in order to intercept calls and other data that would have been harder to break, particularly in bulk. The government can then figure out who, when and to where a target is calling from, the precise location of every device within the range, and even capture the content of the communication. In this way, the federal agencies and local police can safely engage in passive, bulk surveillance without having original decryption keys and without leaving any trace whatsoever. How to protect yourself from DRT box or stingrays? Don't confuse carrier-based encryption with application-level encryptions, end-to-end encryption. Both are different. So, if you are concerned about police snooping on your communication, the best option is use software to encrypt your emails, PGP, instant messages, Telegram or Signal, documents, and even your voice calls, red phone. Besides this, you can also enable 3G/4G/LTE only mode from device settings to forcefully limit your smartphone to use only secure connection. This would prevent DRT box or any cell phone tracking device to intercept your data communication, but might allow location tracking. Warrantless surveillance. Last year, the Department of Justice that oversees the FBI as well as the Department of Homeland Security announced a policy that required the Federal Investigation of Bureau and other federal authorities to obtain a court authorization or warrant before deploying these tracking devices. Moreover, some individual states, including California, also passed a law that requires a warrant for the use of stingrays and similar tracking devices. Still, these spying devices continue to be used without the knowledge of citizens. Now you know the truth. What can be done about this? The major counter to this type of overreach is to have our lawmakers keep the law enforcement agencies honest and accountable to the law. The current party in control is known to use these assets as a political weapon aimed at their opposition. Be informed and let your fellow Americans know the truth.
Whether you're here, or at one of these, it doesn't matter. This can find you. The common name, Stingray. Technically, a cell site simulator. First developed for military use, it's made its way into local law enforcement. It can track a person down to the room they're in if they have their cell phone on them. Stingrays turn these into homing devices, and that's just the beginning.
These are tracking devices. This is emitting a signal. This is GPS.
Mike Mino with the North Carolina branch of the ACLU has been watching the spread of stingrays for years.
It's my understanding that the software that a lot of these devices use is capable of capturing things like your text messages, the numbers you're calling and receiving calls from. We know for sure they're getting people's location.
Here's how it works. Cell phones are always trying to connect to nearby cell towers. A stingray acts like a cell tower decoy. In what's called a man-in-the-middle attack, it tricks cell phones into thinking it's the nearest cell tower, phones connect to the stingray, and police can access a range of personal information. But they don't just get intel on one phone. Every phone nearby is forced to divert to the stingray. Calls are passed on to a real cell tower. Data scooped up stays with police.
When you ask them why they're using it, they'll say, well, we're targeting certain individuals, but the nature of the technology is so expansive that you cannot use this without countless innocent people having their data captured as well.
The I-Team has learned at least 3 law enforcement agencies in the Triangle have been using cell site simulators, but they don't like to talk about it, and may not be allowed to. These 2 purchase orders show Raleigh and Durham police bought variations of the Stingray within the last 10 years. Raleigh's purchase order, obtained by the I-Team 2 years ago, shows the department paid more than $120,000 for the device. Separate documents obtained by the ACLU show Durham spent nearly twice that. In spite of those purchase orders, both departments claimed not to be using one when the I-Team asked recently. Raleigh says they stopped using theirs because of outdated technology. With the Stingray, though, secrecy is part of the deal. Durham's contract with the device's manufacturer includes a strict non-disclosure clause, not just about the Stingray, but about the agreement itself and its subject matter.
There is such secrecy around this, and I think it's because it's so powerful.
I have a cell site simulator, and we do use it.
Wake Sheriff Donnie Harrison is the only current law enforcement officer we could find here or elsewhere willing to talk even a little about the device and how it's used.
It's a very useful tool that we use, not only for the bad guys, but for looking people that are lost, looking people that say they're going to commit suicide. Sometimes we have used them for children that's missing that have phones. And basically that's all about all I'm going to say about it.
Harrison told us Wake County has had a cell site simulator since 2008. He insists they're always within the law and always get a warrant first. But there's very little public documentation of those warrants or of the use of stingrays in general here or in any of the cities in which we looked.
But no, we don't like to talk about it. You know, when a general goes in battle, he doesn't give out his battle plans.
It's the classic question, safety or privacy? Law enforcement will tell you these things get bad guys off the street and help good people out in the meantime. Critics say we just don't know, and we don't, by design.
As long as we do it lawfully, I don't care what people say. My job is to keep people safe.
The public needs to know more. I think this is something that the courts need to know more about. There are real questions about whether a technology that soaks up innocent people's data can be used constitutionally.